Arkansas has named their captains. Who did they name?
Arkansas decided to name Doneiko Slaughter and Addison Nichols as captains for Tennessee for the Tennessee game this Saturday.
Okay. How does this strike you?
I think it strikes me as I think it strikes me as an attempt to steal headlines. I don't even think it's disrespectful. I think it's an attempt to maybe motivate his players and get a few headlines in the process and have a little fun. But I think it I mean, I haven't done this before, Dave, but it officially has me putting Sam Pittman in the Eli Drink with Shane Beamer category.
And what is that category?
Goofballs who focus on headlines as much as anything else. And because this is just lame.
Well, nobody is higher on that list of goofballs trying to manufacture news than currently Shane Beamer. But as far as all time that I've ever seen, it was Butch Jones. I mean, if he got a commitment or even got close or got a confirmed visit, he was on the phone with every recruiting analyst that would possibly listen to him. And he was trying to talk to national analysts, getting them an extra star. So, Caleb, this isn't quite to that level, but to me, it's a little goofy. And I will say that I thought a captain was supposed to be somebody who best represented your team leading into that week. Well, we saw that wasn't the case when Florida named an offensive lineman a captain after he completely dogged it on an interception return the week before. So, Caleb, the whole captain status to me is befuddling. I think you should award people in what they've done during the week, but I feel like a lot of these PR arms of the universities already have it set in stone and have the graphics made. And basically Addison Nichols and Doneiko Slaughter could go out there and quit in the middle of the team and maybe still be named captains for the game.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I'm going to say what it reminds me of. And it's a guy that, as a Titans fan, I despise, who I think was the most overblown coach of all time. And I'm obviously talking about Jeff Fisher, and who was also arrogant as heck. But in 2014, when Jeff Fisher was with the Rams, he decided, because RG3 had started to flame out with Washington, when the Rams played Washington, he decided to send out all the players the Rams acquired in the trade for RG3 in the draft 2 years before. He decided to send them all out as team captains to make fun of Washington for RG3 struggling. I'm like, okay, you can make fun of Washington for RG3 struggling, but you guys went 6-10 that year, and Jeff Fisher was the coach at the Rams for 5 years and never made the playoffs. So you look lame and stupid and pathetic doing that. I'm going to go that way with Sam Pittman. It'd be one thing if like Tennessee was like 5-0, or I'm sorry, if Tennessee was 3-2 and Arkansas was 5-0, and you're trying to do this because like, we got your players and we're better than you. But you're 3-2. Nobody thinks you're better than Tennessee.
No, and here's my problem with it, because I do have a bigger problem than you, is I think it's kind of rubbing Tennessee's nose in it and trying to portray that Arkansas won some transfer portal recruiting battle for these kids. I mean, that wasn't the case. Doneiko Slaughter, 110% was told, hey, you can cruise, and probably should. Addison Nichols, not that strong. They probably would have kept him around. But the bottom line is he was going to find second string once again with William Satterwhite and what he's been able to do at backup center. Guys, he's going to be really, really good. And maybe physically next year as good as Cooper Mays. Now, mentally, that would be asking an awful lot. So I see you have the poll question up, but I would like to reset that a little bit along the lines of Arkansas naming former Vols Doneiko Slaughter, Addison Nichols versus captains for Tennessee is pathetically braggadocious, or you've got all in good fun. I can roll with that, but I want to reset it to some extent because I think it's a little pathetic, to be real honest with you. If Tennessee played Oregon State, would they have Jermod McCoy as a captain just because they're playing Oregon State? I don't think so. I don't think they would do the same for Dante Thornton if they played Oregon. For all of you out there that might say Josh Heupel took his foot off the gas and might have an issue with that's fine. But give him this. He is a legit dude. When he names a captain, I believe that person is actually supposed to be a captain because of their practice work ethic on the field. So, Caleb, I want to get your thoughts on that as What the H today, brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, if I was a player at Tennessee, that would get my attention that those guys were named captains. And they have to meet at midfield. So this is one of those situations, Caleb, where we talk about pregame chatter and how it affects a game. And everybody says, well, once you start hitting, all that stuff's gone. That's true. But I've often said, like when Josh Heupel ran up the score against Missouri, it's how they practiced the week before and how they might develop a special game plan because you chucked one on him to run up the score in 2022. But Caleb, in this particular incident, I don't think that it affects the game. However, I just think it sets for a really, I believe it puts more pressure on Nichols and Slaughter than need be. They already probably felt a lot of pressure because they're playing their former team. Now they're captains, Caleb.
Yeah, and you're right. You brought up a great point earlier, where you're like, captains, when you're trying to have a good team, you're focused on what, not that you don't study film and you don't study other opponents and things like that, but when you're developing your team and your chemistry, you're focused on yourself and your team and what's around you, right? This is very clearly focused on other teams. I mean, that's the only reason you do something like this. Does Sam Pittman really believe Doneiko Slaughter and Addison Nichols are the two best leaders on this team?
No.
This year? I mean, there's no way. And by the way, I'm going to add this. Yeah, we talked about it earlier in the week, or actually we talked about it yesterday. Addison Nichols taking kind of that shot at Josh Heupel. Arkansas's done this is a form of chirping. And Arkansas is doing a lot of chirping right now. And maybe we're seeing why Squirrel White was not that fond and took some things personal with Doneiko Slaughter on Monday. Maybe there's a lot more there because it just seems like Arkansas has some level of resentment or bitterness involving those two players that is not typical of transfers usually.
Yeah, and those guys often talk, and sometimes they even root for each other when they're not playing each other. So for Squirrel White just to come up and say, I haven't even spoken to him. Now I'm sure there have been some players that have, but who? If the offensive players aren't, the defensive backfield's completely different. And it makes me wonder a little bit, was Doneiko Slaughter a bad culture guy? And Caleb, I don't have anything to put out there, but just in terms of his actual play, did you think he was worthy of being run off? Because I thought he was an okay defender in a very bad secondary.
No, I mean,
okay. I'm not saying good. I'm not saying good.
I'm starting to think he wasn't okay with being run off. But again, it's funny because Addison Nichols, as you said, wasn't run off, and he's throwing shots at Josh Heupel more than Doneiko Slaughter is. And so, I mean, this just seems like you're right. It seems somewhat like they were locker room issues, and people are willing to say good riddance to them. And they want to steal. You know what it is? This is a funny phrase. I don't know if any of you guys watched the cartoon The Fairly Odd Parents back in the day, but Timmy Turner had a crush on this girl, and she was the popular girl. He sat next to her one day and ignored her, and she was like, I'm ignoring you. I said I'm ignoring you. Stop ignoring me, ignoring you. And Doneiko Slaughter And Addison Nichols are basically trying to be like, we're ignoring you, Tennessee. We're ignoring you, Tennessee. Stop ignoring us, ignoring you. And it's kind of like, because Tennessee's totally ignoring them. And I think they're taking it personal that that's happening.
Okay, so update on our poll question. Would you change it up? What's that on our YouTuber page?
All right. We are now at, I haven't changed it up yet.
Okay, what do you got on it now? Because I got a new one for you.
All right, right now it's Arkansas naming former Vols Doneiko Slaughter, Addison Nichols as captains versus Tennessee is disrespectful, all in good fun. 29% say disrespectful, 71% say all in good fun.
Okay, I guess.
I know, I'm with you. I disagree.
To me, okay. Let's not say disrespectful. Is it at the very least poking the bear?
Yeah, I think it's
just poking the bear.
It's pathetic. I just think pathetic, like you said. You know what it reminds me of? Oh, this is another one reminder. Remember 1999, Dave, when Georgia visited Tennessee and Georgia players stomped on their tee at midfield before the game?
Yes.
And Tennessee just beat the brakes off them that night. And it's like Georgia had.
Well, and you know why that stands out too? Because that was very not Mark Richt-like. So this is very not Sam Pittman-like, which makes me think that he's a little bit desperate, or there are people that are calling the shots behind the scenes. Like,
no, this was pre-Mark Richt, though. It was Jim Donnan era.
Oh, well then drunken Jim Donnan, what was he going to do?
Dave, he wore a tie every game, though.
But the point being, in both situations, actually that furthers my point. In both situations, coaches were on the hot seat, and this seems like a little nudge at the opponent that hopefully will get your fan base excited. This is like tacking on a touchdown, like Josh Heupel style.
Exactly. Just like Jeff Fisher when he was at the Rams. He was on the hot seat, and he did it. You're right. Coaches are doing this to create a splash. They kind of look like clowns. I never thought about that. It's like, you're right. If Josh Heupel does it, if Steve Spurrier does it, we're all going to laugh because we're like, that's Spurrier. He's a troll. And if Lane Kiffin does it, we're going to laugh. It's like, that's Kiffin. He's a troll. When Sam Pittman does it, you look like a loser, bro.
Yeah. Dan says it's not in good fun. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Dan there. I think it's at the very least poking the bear.